Hey, I'm Ryan, and today I'm going to be recommending my top albums released in the year 2023. I have listened to over 100 albums released in 2023, and there were a lot of them that I did not like, but we are not here to talk about those ones. We're going to talk about the roughly 30 that I did enjoy. And if you're going to take anything away from this video, it's that I have a playlist linked in the description below that you can just check out and listen to a sampling across these recommendations for yourself. Skip over the ones that you hate and clearly don't align with my taste, and maybe you'll find a new favorite that works for you. But I got a lot to talk about here, so I'm going to go through them and try to go through them quickly, starting with my honorable mentions, otherwise known as my 7 out of 10s. These are going to be in alphabetical order, so no particular ranking within the honorable mentions, starting with Black Classical Music by Yusuf Days. This is a very cool, mostly instrumental jazz fusion, and it's got some killer drumming from Yusuf Days, who's the kind of band leader here. And just a lot of cool grooves and cool stuff going on. It's maybe a little long for what it is for my taste. I think it's over an hour. But one that I definitely enjoyed, especially when it was a little bit more in the background while I was working on something. And yeah, if you like kind of jazz fusion type stuff, I think there's a lot of cool stuff here that's worth a listen. Next up, we have, I believe it is the debut solo album from Brian Chatton, who is the frontman of the band Fontaines DC. And this is his album, Chaos for the Fly. I have listened to a couple albums from Fontaines DC, and ironically, I actually enjoyed this album more than either of the albums that I listened to by that band, which were fine, but weren't really clicking for me. This one was a little bit, I don't know, there was something about the style of it. He's got a pretty unique voice and kind of the stripped back instrumentation. Didn't blow me away, but had some catchy stuff, and enough for me to include it on my honorable mentions. Next up, we have a unique instrumental album from Takeshi's Cashew. This is Enter Jay's Chamber. And this is just groovy instrumental jams. Definitely some different world music influences here and some of the instrumentation. And it's just good fun, nice energy. It's not something that's going to blow me away, keep me coming back to it a ton. But I've had fun with it. And actually my kids really, really like, specifically the track Serpentines. I forget the whole name of the track, but it's been their favorite song to dance to. So if you got young kids, I can recommend it from that angle. Next up, we have another solo album from Steven Wilson, frontman of also the band Porcupine Tree. And this is the Harmony Codex. And this has Steven Wilson going, he's kind of got the progressive rock thing going on, but going a little bit more into electronic with some of the sounds. It doesn't blow me away, or it hasn't really compelled me to keep this in rotation, but it's just another strong entry in a lot of the projects that he's worked on. And I enjoyed it, and definitely enough to recommend it. If you're a fan of the genre, it's definitely worth a listen. My next recommendation is going to be my guilty pleasure recommendation, because this is not an artist that I would have expected to be enjoying an album from. But this is The Loveliest Time by Carly Rae Jepsen. Kind of this mainstream pop type of album isn't usually something that lands well for me. There's something about the instrumentation and delivery with Carly Rae Jepsen's stuff that just works a little bit better. That you can't deny the catchiness and some of the just fun of some of these songs. It's shallow, from kind of the lyrics and content perspective here, but I can't deny that I have enjoyed some of the songs here, and I kind of went into her discography a little bit after listening to this one, went all the way back to her album Emotion, which I think is easily her best, but this one is still pretty good. Next, we have kind of a cool instrumental prog rock, but more of maybe a woodsy edge. This is Prima Materia from the band Agusa. And so it's like, a 4-song album, so longer tracks, these jams, and it's got just a little different feel than a lot of other ones in the genre. There's a lot of flute in it, and that just kind of gives it, I feel like they're not taking themselves too seriously with just kind of how the songwriting is approached. And there's definitely a couple tracks, at least on here, that just really, they're just fun tracks to listen to. So it's one I've come back to several times. And if you enjoy that kind of progressive jamming, strong musicianship, this is a fun listen to maybe check out. Speaking of maybe guilty pleasure albums, and another one I would have never expected to resonate with me, this is from Joey Valance and Bray, who are like a Gen Z comedy rap duo. This is Punk Tactics, their debut album. I actually listened to their album No Hands first, that came out the following year, and I think that is the stronger album, but there is still a lot of just fun stuff here. It's going to be hit or miss with a lot of people, but there's something about it that's really catchy. It's a little bit reminiscent of like Beastie Boys, with the delivery kind of leaning back into some older kind of rap style music, which is not a genre that typically resonates for me. So it's hard to say exactly what's working for me here, but it's catchy. I kind of like that they're not taking themselves too seriously. They're like poking fun at themselves. The lyrics, there's a lot of very just kind of funny, goofy lyrics. So it is one that, for whatever reason, I have found myself coming back to. Next up, we have a Japanese pop album. I'd never heard of the band Cringy, but their album Steppin' Out has kind of this funky, jazzy lounge feel. It's got a nice sound to it, and I enjoyed kind of the songwriting and the vocals, and a lot of fun melodies, groovy instrumentation. Obviously, it's not in English, so you have to be a little bit open to some different languages in the vocals, but I found that I enjoyed this one. Next, we have the sophomore album from Genesis Owusu. This is Struggler. I enjoyed his first album quite a bit. That is completely escaping me. Smiling with No Teeth, I believe is the name of the album. And enjoyed that one. It kind of went up and went down. It settled a little bit for me. It's not quite as high as it used to be for me, but still an album I enjoy. Didn't enjoy this one as much. There's a few tracks that I feel like are pretty strong and catchy in kind of his style. He's kind of this kind of combining a lot of genres here of kind of this like neo soul, funk, rock, synth pop. Like there's just some different things, kind of borderline rap. There's a lot kind of going on here. I definitely recommend his first album more, but there was just enough here. This one I think kind of squeaked onto my list. But it's always hard when you're coming off another album you enjoy and you feel like you didn't enjoy it as much to kind of weigh it on its own merits instead of by comparison. But a decent second effort, I think, from Genesis Owusu. My next one here is from an artist I was not familiar with. This is Lucy Rose with This Ain't the Way You Go Out. She's a kind of singer, songwriter, piano driven, kind of pop rock tunes, a little bit maybe of a more jazzy, soulful feel. And nothing, it's pretty stripped back. There's not a lot that's like really crazy here. But it worked pretty well for me for as far as in this genre. I found myself coming back to it a little bit more than I do to maybe other ones I've listened to. And so it's kind of fallen out of my regular rotation, but one that I thought was pretty good. This is a throwback to a band that I associate with like my high school years, and this is Paramore with their newer album This Is Why. Now, I had not kept up with Paramore, so there's a bunch of albums in their discography I have not listened to, but listened to this one and was kind of surprised with kind of their sound and direction, and found especially the title track here to be a very catchy, fun kind of rock song. That's probably the main one that stayed in my rotation. I haven't actually listened to a lot of the rest of the album. since originally listening to it. But strong enough that it made it onto my honorable mentions. Next, we have Wall Socket by Underscores. This is not a genre that usually lands that well for me. Kind of a very almost hyper pop, electronic pop, very sugary, like over the top in a lot of ways, glitchy. But this one, there are definitely a few tracks here that really grew on me. A lot of just kind of fun, catchy stuff. Not a lot that I'm coming back to a ton. But as far as like this genre, it might be one of my favorites I've listened to. Usually these kind of mystery, they get a little glitchy and weird for me that it gets to the point where it doesn't sound good, which ultimately I'm trying to like put words to all these things when really all this is just like, did I like how it sounded? But this is one that I did actually enjoy. Next we have Witchy Activities and the Maple Death from Monica Roscher Big Band. And this is kind of a wild outfit led by Monica Roscher, who's like the band leader, but it's almost like a full orchestra thing that's doing very kind of progressive rock with kind of this big band feel. A lot of very syncopated, complex rhythms is definitely a theme through the whole album. Kind of moody. It's a little long for my taste for like what it is. I've kind of trimmed it down to my favorites as far as what's been staying in my rotation, but a pretty fresh listen with a lot of kind of cool stuff. And yeah, if you're into maybe a little bit more progressive music, I think this is one that's worth a listen. And lastly, we have kind of a weird one. This is kind of a goofy concept album about a worm that's like destroying and threatening to consume. It's been a while since I've looked into the lore of it, but England in the Middle Ages or something like that. This is The Worm by HMLTD. I don't know exactly how they usually pronounce their name. Very odd and it's a very operatic, theatrical, over-the-top concept album. But I did find myself enjoying some of the music here and kind of the direction. Some of the early songs, I wondered if it was going to get a little bit too like almost like avant-garde prog rock, but it kind of like fell in. There's definitely a few of the tracks here that are pretty kind of catchy, accessible. Not one that has stayed in rotation for me, but I had a good run with it where I actually listened to it quite a few times. So definitely worth a listen, especially if your interest is piqued by this worm threatening to consume the medieval English countryside. With that, we are headed into my top albums of the year. These are going to be my top in ranked order. We've got 17 of them. So we're going to start with number 17. This is another non-English album, so good luck with this title. Me chama de gato que susua. Sure, I nailed that. This is by Ana Frango Elétrico. This is a Brazilian album. I think most of it is in Portuguese. Very funky fun, though. And like, it just has kind of this cool, funky sound and delivery. It's, I don't know, it stayed in my rotation. I found myself coming back to it, so I must be continually enjoying it enough. Obviously, it fell to the very bottom of ones that surpassed my honorable mentions, but makes it in at number 17. Next, we have Opus by Nospūn. This is a long kind of concept progressive rock album, pushing more to like the side of maybe something like Dream Theater, who I have not listened to much, and I haven't listened to, honestly, many other artists kind of on this side of things, but very kind of like over the top with the guitar solos and the instrumentation is kind of showy with, look what crazy riffs we can play. And this is like a homegrown project. Like I think the guys in the band, a couple guys in the band like own their own recording, mixing, mastering studio or something. So they did it all self-produced. And it's not a very well-known band, but I enjoyed this one. I did get over there's a little bit of the like almost cheesy factor with just some of the delivery and the lyrical content, especially because the lyrics are like telling the story of basically like this like murder mystery thing at this house. And so there's a lot of kind of very I guess, upfront lyrics, like not very hidden messages with some of it that sometimes can come across a little bit. I struggle to find another word besides cheesy, but I've gotten kind of past that to where I kind of just enjoy this album. Despite being long, there's just a lot of cool instrumentation in it that I found myself coming back to it. Next up, we have an album from a band that was put in a very unique position of releasing a very highly claimed album and then having immediately their lead singer leave the band. And so it's like, well, what are they going to do after that? Well, they released this live album, but of completely new material. So it was recorded live, but basically, at least from my perspective, it's a new album from the band. This is Live at Bush Hall from Black Country New Road. And given their situation and losing their lead singer, who was a very defining piece of their sound, admittedly, if you've listened to their earlier stuff, I thought this was a very strong comeback. I don't enjoy it as much as their prior album, Ants, from Up There, but it is a good one. There's a lot of catchy stuff here. They've got kind of a unique, I don't know how I would describe it. It's kind of this art rock with some different instrumentation as far as like horns and piano, and like there's kind of a lot of different textures going on in a lot of these songs and kind of interesting arrangements. They're kind of singing by committee in this one, so there's several different band members that end up contributing vocals to different tracks, which is a little hit or miss. And as someone who really enjoyed the prior album, there's a little bit of, I miss kind of the icon. It was Isaac Wood, I think is his name, was such an iconic piece of the band's sound that it really is almost like this new evolution of the band. I mean, it literally is a new evolution of the band. But I thought it's about as good as they could have put out given the circumstances. My number 14 is one that I was not expecting to climb up my list like this, and I don't know how to pronounce it. It is CYRM by the band Oxen. The O with a slash, XN. However you pronounce it, this is a very intriguing, it's like traditional, is it Irish or some, I'm struggling for words here, but it's like these kind of like old traditional folk songs, but thrown through the angle of this modern, like, industrial, hypnotic, electronic, really big builds. The lead singer here is also, and I think maybe one of the other band members is in the band, Lankum, who does a lot of this kind of similar style, but less maybe into the darker building electronic sound. But her lead vocals are very strong, kind of giving the feel of these traditional tunes. But man, this comes together in this very hypnotic, epic way. That this thing that I would not have expected. It's almost bordering on kind of like droning music. Like, there's a lot of repetition here, and usually that starts to kind of hurt my enjoyment of albums. But this is one that I just found really cool and has some really epic highs. And I've kept coming back to. I actually enjoyed this one more than either of the Lankum album I've listened to. So there you go. I don't think this one's nearly as popular as Lankum's music, but maybe worth a look if some of that sounded intriguing. Next, we have from Caroline Polachek, Desire I Want to Turn Into You. This was my introduction to Caroline Polachek, who I would describe as a pop singer, but she's got a very unique voice, and some of her unique vocal flourishes, it's like almost otherworldly, some of these things that she's kind of doing with her voice that gives it a lot of character. And then I found the arrangements just interesting and just strongly written kind of pop tunes. So it kind of combines a lot of what I like about, like, I mentioned something like Carly Rae Jepsen, which is just like really well produced, kind of by the book pop, but really well done. This like takes a lot of what I like about that, but pushes it a little bit more in some interesting directions. So I thought this was a very, very strong kind of more pop album. Next, we have what was my introduction to Mitski, even though this is quite a few albums into her discography. And this is The Land is Inhospitable and So Are We. Kind of a really lush folk pop, just strong songwriting and vocals that managed to avoid sounding the same. I feel like the songs across this album kind of distinguish themselves. And overall, I was impressed by it. And I've listened to a little bit more of her discography, but I'm planning on kind of getting into more of it after listening to this one. Next, we have an artist that I had completely listened to his rather large discography before listening to this new release, and this is Javelin by Sufjan Stevens. Now, Sufjan has covered a lot of genres across his discography. This one is leaning a little bit back more to his more folk acoustic guitar driven, but it takes that and then like really sprinkles in a lot of pieces that he's explored. He really explored kind of these epic, kind of more electronic driven stuff on The Ascension. And so you definitely feel some of that here, but then it's still got a lot of stuff that feels almost closer to something like Carrie and Lowell, which is my favorite album from Sufjan. And so it really comes together well. It doesn't quite reach the heights of my favorite Sufjan albums. There's a lot here that on paper makes me feel like I should like it even more than I do. But a very enjoyable one. A lot of strong tracks here that really exemplify a lot of what he's done best over his career. Next, we have a new artist that I do not think is very well known, that is very much calling back to older era of something like Marvin Gaye and kind of 70s soul music. And this is Come Around and Love Me by Jalen Naganda. And it just, this does not sound like an album that came out in 2023. It's definitely wearing its influences on his sleeves. He's got a voice that is in the stratosphere for his notes that he's hitting. But man, have I come back to this one and found that these are just groovy, well-written tunes in that genre. I'm loving the bass that's driving a lot of these songs. And it's just been working for me. Sometimes these types of albums kind of leave you with a feeling of like, well, why wouldn't I just go listen to the thing that this is clearly influenced by? But I'm going to be honest, I find myself actually gravitating more to this than I might I've listened a decent amount to Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, and like a lot of the tracks here are on that one, but there's something here that's clicking for me. So worth a look if you like that type of kind of soul music with some kind of groovy funk underlying it. Which brings us into the top 10. We are now to number 9. Another artist that I have listened to for a while. I've listened to all their albums. Actually saw them live in the last year, which was a very fun rocking experience. They have a really dumb name. This is Fronzoli from the Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. And this is a band that's kind of this heavier rock riffing, kind of a heavy psych, I guess, is psychedelic rock. But that whatever reason, it kind of has clicked for me for what I like in kind of a heavier rock, not taking themselves too seriously, fun rockin' albums. And my favorites are still their debuts, High Visceral 1 and 2. But this one I probably enjoyed this one a lot, or more than a lot of their kind of in-between albums during that time. There's just a lot of heavy headbanging moments, but they also, they clearly aren't taking themselves too seriously. There's some funny elements to it. And it's just, it's fun rockin' stuff. And so made it into my top 10 here for the year. At number 8, we have an artist that I was not familiar with. This is Bobbing with Year of the Newt, which is a very short, quick album. I think it's right around a half hour. But man, is this just a lot of fun tracks to throw on to just have some good energy, dance, Friday night, just get some nice energy. It's rockin' indie-tronica maybe is a descriptor. And it had a good first impression. Oftentimes these type of albums kind of fade quickly for me because they maybe don't have a lot of depth. But this one hasn't. This has got a lot of play in the last year. And I just I find myself really clicking with, I like this type of kind of catchy pop rock that uses electronic sounds in kind of fun, catchy ways. And I think this one does it pretty well. So despite being kind of a quick, short one, this is one that I really enjoyed. Next, we have a singer-songwriter album, very laid-back, relaxing one, and my introduction to the artist Helena DeLand. This is Goodnight Summerland, and this is just really gorgeous harmonies and layered instrumentation, very stripped back, and the landscape it paints is really nice. I just really find myself liking how the mix comes together here. There's interesting, progressions and melodies. There's some things in the songwriting here that are a little more nuanced than other things I've listened to in this genre. It feels like kind of like a rainy day album, but one that has really continued to rise for me, and is all the way up to my number 7 for 2023. Next up, we have another example of why I'm so glad that I've been more open to non-English albums, going out of my shell a little bit to listen to albums in other languages, because I would never have listened to an album like this. And this is Ahora o Nunca by Candelabro. So this is all in Spanish. This is a Chilean band and a very, I think, kind of more underground indie band that is not that popular. But man, is there a nice thing they've got going on here with this kind of art rock. I don't even know who I would compare them to. Like Arcade Fire popped into my mind, but I don't think that's like a great comparison, but maybe it's like at least some anchoring point for the style of music here. But some fun, catchy things and builds and just nice instrumentation. I actually love the bass on this album. Like the bassist is doing some really nice stuff in the ways that he contributes to the song without overplaying, but really adding some depth to what's there. As a bassist myself, I really just appreciate what the bass brings to this album. Very impressive debut here. And as far as I last saw, I think they have a new album coming out later this year, possibly. So I definitely am all in on kind of following what they are continuing here, because I have really, really enjoyed this album. Number 5, we have an artist who was very popular back in like the 80s, and I've listened to a couple of his albums, and now here in his 70s, I think, with this album, and hadn't released, as far as I know, like a big, normal studio album in a while, and comes with I.O. This is Peter Gabriel. And I had enjoyed his Peter Gabriel, I think 2 or 3 is the Melt one. Really enjoyed a lot of the songs on that one. But this one has been a big, big surprise for me. It's got really cool production and lush arrangements. He clearly is such a strong songwriter. For his age, his voice is still holding up really, really well. And this one has just been a slow climber. The more I listen to more of the tracks, come up in shuffle, and you hear them, and then when you listen to the whole album again, you're like, oh yeah, this album is like actually loaded with a lot of tracks that I like. And so I would venture to say this is threatening to become my favorite album by Peter Gabriel. I've only listened to this, Melt, and then So, which is one of his very popular ones, which I enjoy. But I think, don't quote me, I.O. might be becoming my favorite by Peter Gabriel, which is impressive, honestly, at this point in his career. Next up, we are getting into a band that has really just exploded for me in how much I enjoy their music. Another, similar to Jalen Naganda, clear callback to influences from 60s, 70s. This is the Lemon Twigs with Everything Harmony. And it's two brothers that clearly love the Beatles, the Beach Boys, all these kind of bands from back in that Sunshine pop, Baroque pop era. And I, can see where, again, some people might listen to this and just feel like it's too obviously inspired. But for me, it's like, well, I enjoy that genre in some of those older bands. Who says that genre needs to die and there isn't more room to explore there? And I definitely feel that the Lemon Twigs explore it in very original ways, and that their contributions here are not just ripping off old songs or anything. And yeah, this is really, really grown on me. Their follow-up to it, A Dream Is All I Know, We Know, I think the track and the album have different names and I never remember, is possibly even stronger than this one for my taste. But this one, catchy, earworms, just really fun. I like vocal harmonies, and like this, the 60s, 70s, those bands, that was huge. And so I really love kind of seeing a band explore that more, and some of these kind of more, the types of chord progressions that were kind of iconic to that era. It's fun music, and I really enjoy Everything Harmony by the Lemon Twigs. Also got to see the Lemon Twigs live. Arguably, that might have been my favorite concert I've been to, just because it was a small venue, got to be right up front, and it's fun music. So I really enjoyed the Lemon Twigs. Next up, we have a artist that, again, kind of out of genre for me here. You start going into kind of like punk or pop punk rock stuff, and it tends to be a little bit more abrasive and not really kind of what I enjoy. But I have been very surprised how much I have been liking Jeff Rosenstock. And this was actually my first album I listened to by him, which is HELLMODE. And when I started this album, it sounded like, it was like, okay, this is pretty, first of all, explicit right out of the gate. The first track is like dropping F-bombs right away, and it was getting pretty noisy with some of the instrumentation. But then it settled a little bit, and it was like, okay, I'm kind of liking what this is doing instrumentally. And the more it went on, and the more I've come back to it, the more I'm like, this is really actually kind of nailing a sound that I enjoy, with this kind of like high energy, kind of frantic punk rock feel, but really good songwriting, really catchy stuff. So huge surprise for me this year. I mean, this has really rocketed up my ratings and how much I enjoy it. And spoiler, it's actually not even my favorite album by Jeff Rosenstock, as I've gone back into his discography a bit. I'll leave that teaser. Subscribe to the channel. I'm sure you'll soon hear what is my favorite album. But HELLMODE, really, really strong, and I'm really glad it introduced me to his stuff, because I've really, really been enjoying a lot of it. We are to number 2, which is an album very different from HELLMODE. This is more singer-songwriter, very kind of folky, stripped-back instrumentation, very lush, lots of really good harmonies. And my introduction to this artist as well, who I have, at this point, I think deep dived almost her entire discography. And this is Blow Me. I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce that. It's not English. I think it means bloom, by Susanne Sundfør. I think she's Norwegian. And most of this album is in English. And huge surprise here. And a grower as well. Her voice, just clicks for me. I mean, it is, she's got such a strong voice, and the harmonies that she does, and just her writing of melodies, really, really great stuff. But yeah, the main tracks here, kind of the heavy hitters, are just so well written, with the melodies and harmonies and instrumentation. It just all comes together so well. It kind of walks that line between being catchy but still like inventive and interesting. This actually has a few like kind of spoken word, kind of weird tracks that, on first listen, it's like, okay, I'm probably not going to keep those around in rotation. But as time has gone on, I actually kind of like them, because the way they set up the stage of the album, it's worked for me. This one as a whole. And so this has remained my favorite, which I think is not a common opinion for people that are fans of Susanne Sundfør. A lot of her earlier stuff is a lot more of this like electronic synth driving, upbeat. Like, this is a little bit of a departure with her two most recent albums to a little bit more of a stripped back, non-electronic feel, more acoustic. But man, a lot of really well-written songs. And yeah, what more can I say than it is my number 2 of 2023. However, my number 1 was clear. It was not particularly close. There definitely was a gap here. And this one, I sometimes think about how albums the more I've listened to more and more music, the more I find that music I really like tends to just have a little bit more character or something distinctive about it. Because when you listen to so much music, you can start to have a lot of music that's like good, but doesn't have anything to really make you want to come back to it versus something else. And this is a band and album that I would say has a lot of character to it. This is 3D Country by the band Geese. And this has just continued to rise to where this is now like in some of my all-time favorite albums, kind of this off-kilter, erratic approach to indie rock that, when I was first listening to it, it felt like it was going to be a little bit too much. And a band that maybe is an example, I've listened to some Squid. That's a band that has not really landed for me, that I feel like it felt like this was going to be going more in the direction that I remembered with some of the stuff I had listened to from Squid. It definitely comes out of the gate with the opening track. 2122 is like pretty in your face. It's a great track, but it definitely makes you be like, okay, what am I getting with this album? The next 3 tracks are pretty accessible, I would say, and pretty catchy. And man, there's great melodies here. Interesting, like it just has a lot of interest to it, but still stays anchored enough in just sounding good. I love kind of the guitar work and the bass and are very, it's one of those albums where you can easily pick out the different parts and how they're kind of working together in the song. There's a few things I could do without in this album, or they go a little bit past what I enjoy. There's like a 20 seconds of just screaming wall of noise at the end of Undoer. Probably could have done without that personally. But I enjoy the bulk of the album so much that I'm more forgiving of some of those little moments. So very excited to see what Geese does next. I actually have tickets to go see Geese live, which should be fun. But I think they really knocked it out of the park here with this is their sophomore record. I've listened to their debut and it's okay, but huge jump in my opinion to this one, and makes 3D Country comfortably my top album of 2023.